First of all, let me welcome again Mr. Prime Minister. Thank you so much for joining us. We really are delighted here to have you with us. The first question and the first segment involves world and regional politics. And the first question is about Russia, the United States, and the war in Ukraine. Some international scholars believe that the West, particularly the United States, has goaded Russia in its invasion of Ukraine. They argue that ever since the fall and disintegration of the Soviet Union in 1991 and up until perhaps 2017, we had a unipolar world which the United States exploited in order to expand NATO, turn as many countries in Europe to become Western liberal democracies under its tutelage, and further weaken Russia. This aggressive US strategy, they argue, has provoked Russia and is considered the main reason for the war in Ukraine. On the other hand, the majority of Western leaders argue that the main reason for invading Russia is an aggressive Russian policy where Russian leader Vladimir Putin wants to restore Greater Russia and subject some of the former Soviet satellites to Russia's rule and dictates. You've been a keen observer of world politics and dealt directly with world leaders. Which argument do you believe, and how do you see the end of this brutal conflict?
Thank you very much for inviting me to this, your first, I believe, inaugural session on question and answers. I want to thank SIGA for honoring me today, and I hope I'll be able to answer all your questions. Now, this is the whole Ukraine-Russian conflict. I happen to be visiting Moscow on the day when Russia decided to go into Ukraine. So, I had a meeting that same day with President Putin. So I know the Russian point of view. And the Russian point of view is that we had repeatedly indicated to the Western countries that we would not allow NATO to come right onto our doorsteps. And their argument is that just like the United States would not want Russia to come in and say in Mexico and with all their weaponry. So the conflict from the Russian point of view has been triggered out of fear that if NATO moves in to Ukraine, which they felt should have been demilitarized or should have been neutral, they felt that then the security of Russia was at stake. And the other thing was that President Putin kept saying that in the past, Western leaders, American leaders, had all told him that, look, this will not happen. And they had given him assurances. And so unfortunately, he said that these assurances were broken and hence the conflict. The Western point of view is very straightforward, that this is Russian aggression. It's invasion. It's coming into they invaded a country and they're blaming Russia for all the destruction that is taking place due to war. So now my point of view, I basically feel that countries like Pakistan, we should not become partisan in this. We should not pass value judgments on this or moral judgments on this. The reason, I don't feel that our countries should conflicts that don't affect us. And I'm talking about developing world, countries like Pakistan, which have 100 million people vulnerable, almost 50 million people below the poverty line, 50 million people above the poverty line. And so when we make moral judgments in conflicts, it comes at a cost for countries like us. So, for instance, we would have wanted cheap oil from Russia. We would have wanted 2 million tons of wheat from Russia. A gas pipeline was arranged with a Russian company. So all that gets affected the moment you take sides. And, our neighbor India, which is a part of the Quad, which is a strategic military, economic military alliance with the United States, India abstained in this because they too felt that they needed cheap oil from Russia. And what this conflict has done, post the COVID situation where already there was a commodity super cycle, and this conflict has raised energy prices to the level which is causing a lot of problems in Europe. We all know that in Europe they are suffering from gas shortage and energy prices spike. But in the developing world, it has caused a massive problems in our balance of payments, because it has just, the oil prices going up, I know they're coming down now, but that caused an enormous problem for countries like us. So therefore, my take on this, there are 2 points of view. We would like to abstain, my country, we would like to abstain in this. But I do feel that this conflict has caused massive problems all over the world.
Thank you very much for your answer. The next question is about China, and Awais will ask that question.
Keeping with our theme about world and regional politics, we'd like to stick with talking about the great powers. For the past 3 decades, the power of China has been on a steady rise economically, military and technologically, among other spheres. It has certainly become a world power. Pakistan has also been one of its major partners, not only economically but also geopolitically. How will Pakistan maneuver between China and the United States, particularly in growing US pressure on Pakistan to take sides? How do you envision the role of China in a multipolar world and in competition with the US?
Well, Awais, the problem is that, when we are countries, again, I sort of following from your first question, when we are weak countries, we developing countries are pushed to take sides. And I feel that Pakistan should not take any sides. I'm talking about our country. Because, why do we have to take sides? Pakistan should have good relationship with both China and with the United States. Similarly, I feel with Russia and the United States. For instance, that's the policy of India. I must say that I've always admired the way India remained non-aligned during the Cold War. I thought it was a sensible thing to do. I mean, when you become part of a bloc, that means that the whole other bloc is excluded from you. And of course, great powers do put enormous pressure on you to take sides. So let me first say that China-Pakistan relationship goes back a long time, 60 years. And China has been what we call always a friend in need. China has stood by Pakistan, whether it is on international forums, on politics. For instance, Kashmir is an issue, a United Nations resolution on Kashmir stating that there should have been a plebiscite in Kashmir for the people of Kashmir to decide whether they wanted to be with India or Pakistan. And that right was not given to them. But hardly any other country stands with us. China has always stood with us, and I must say, Turkey has stood with us. But even Muslim countries, despite knowing the injustice going on in Kashmir, just like in Palestine, they do not stand with us. Which is, by the way, one of the reasons I feel that when we are told to take sides in a conflict like Ukraine, why should we? When things that are important to us, the Western countries don't take a stand or moral stand on it. And so I feel that